Did you know that despite being so large, Warhorse makes you explore most of Trosky in no time and you don't even realize it? No yellow paint, no mentor spelling it out for you, just some good old-fashioned questing. Don't believe me? I'll show it to you. Well, you already know how much I love Kingdom Come Deliverance too, at least by looking at how long my video about it was. Not like I was gonna talk an hour about it and then go, thanks, I hate it. Part of my good impression comes from the fact that Trosky Region is one of gaming's best designed open world segments. That's a tall order there. There's a whole lot of things that Warhorse has done well, but I think their design philosophy and how they manage the game's introductory chapter stands the tallest and brightest on their crown of achievements. They managed to introduce the region and all it offers in a way that guides players, all while still giving them abundant freedom that we take for granted in open world RPGs. But how about I actually explain what the hell am I talking about? To prove my point, I'll go through what part of the level design makes Trosky work so well, and then how the quests tie everything up with a nice bow tie in the early stages of the playthrough. By quests, I mean the first series you have available at the end of the introduction, alongside those that become immediately available as you go ahead and complete them. I'm not going to talk about the story unless it's relevant for context, and I'll not go beyond the wedding in Samin to make my point, since by then you're pretty deep into the game anyway. With all that being said, let's see what we're dealing with. To get a quick rundown of the game's start, we open to Henry being part of Sir Hans's escort for his mission to deliver a letter at Trosky Castle. In the linear segment that follows, upon arriving in the region, you're met by soldiers from the castle's garrison, and after a short chit-chat, Sir Hans orders his men to set up camp by the lake. Then follows the bandit attack, the desperate escape, the arrested Bozhena the herb woman that puts you both back on your feet, the humiliating setback at Trosky Castle's gates, and finally the arrival Troskovitz's tavern, where we get the opportunity to discover the new possibilities to overcome said setback before getting into a brawl and finally having full freedom of movement as the game opens up. What's there to see in this whole thing? Have I gone mad again and went into one of my parentheses? Partially correct, but there is no parenthesis in here. That's because, well, there's lots of things here, to be frank. But the one thing I really want to start with is Trosky Castle itself. It's not like you can miss it anyway, the game puts it right in front of your face just as we're introduced to the story, with long frames that make obvious its status as our traveler's destination. But this doesn't stop here. As you ride through a wooded valley, it opens up at Rockwater Pond, where we meet with von Bergov's garrison and then camp for the night. While talking to Captain Thomas, the castle is clearly visible in the background, magically unobstructed by the dense forest growing on these hills or the characters as they have their conversation. That, or it's the work of some seriously industrious landscapers for this very convenient framing. This time, it's not as much in your face, more like blooming, ever-present in all the wide frames of the scene. Captain Thomas says his goodbyes, and then the castle is blurred out but well positioned in the frame that has nothing else but the clear sky in the background. It's subtle enough that I didn't even realize all these things the first time I went through this segment, as my eyes were drawn to the characters and the conversation. But just because I can't pay attention, doesn't mean that Warhorse left these by accident. In Troskovitz Tavern, you get multiple glimpses at the castle, including when Henry and Hans are locked at the pillory, in case you hadn't seen it enough by now. This is the kind of show don't tell thing that I'm a really big fan of, but what I like even more is that it functions as a tease, a metaphoric carrot on a stick that Warhorse is dangling in front of you throughout the whole introduction. It starts as this very distant goal you need to reach, then the place where Henry and Hans pinned their hopes on after their first stopping block, before facing the second major setback of being stopped right in front of the gates. It's as if Warhorse is yanking the aforementioned carrot from right under your nose. But the visit to the tavern serves as a rekindling of your hopes when Catherine informs Henry that they could meet von Bergov at the big wedding in Samin and fix everything, giving you a clear goal for you to aim for. But you can interpret the castle in a different way as well. First, it's an attainable formality as Henry and Hans arrive in the area and set up camp. This perspective changes to one of hopelessness and despair when their whole retinue is killed and they're left within an inch of their lives. After being patched up, the tone shifts back to one of optimism as our heroes take a stroll towards Trosky, even in the poor state that they were. But with the gates closed and the unceremonious send-off, we're left feeling frustrated as the rug got pulled from under our feet yet again. That leaves us with the visit to the tavern, where despite the seemingly unsurmountable odds we're faced with, we get to see a few rays of hope to motivate us into pushing on. Maybe it's a stretch on my end, but it's impressive seeing how a landmark of the map can be associated with so many different emotions within the space of an hour. Oh my god, am I turning into a stereotypical white boy video essay guy? Am I gonna make a video asking if the rivers flow realistically in Trosky? Ah yeah, that dude already made a video about Gutenberg's fountain, why am I not fucking surprised, huh? The thing that needs to be mentioned is that Trosky didn't even need to be a part of the game. It exists solely because Warhorse thought it will be an interesting location to introduce players in, with the castle serving as a cool anchor to tie the region around. That's right, unlike Gutenberg, which was a stage for a lot of the real-life events that would warrant its presence in the story, nothing really happened in Trosky, and Henry doesn't get to do anything that would be worthy of being taught in a history class anyway. And you know what? It was a wise choice indeed. It even made it to the poster because of how cool and unique it is. That's it, there's nothing deeper to it, and I'm definitely not complaining. That's because the region's geography works like a charm in putting it in the center of the attention. The whole area is more or less a hill, with its highest point being the castle. And even if the geography of the region is a reflection of the real place, it's pretty clear to me that Warhorse wanted Trosky Castle to be a visible landmark from large parts of the map. It's a bit like the cliché of Eiffel Tower being in clear view from every window of Parisian apartments in American movies, but it works like a charm for this purpose. Of course, it helps that the area around it is almost completely clear of trees, making visibility even better. Clearing out forests around the castle was a normal practice for arranging the defense, so I'm not deluding myself that this was an artistic choice by the developers, but they've used it to the fullest extent nevertheless. What sticks out on the other hand is how things are in the areas shielded away from the gaze of this metaphorical Eye of Sauron. Around the immediate vicinity of Trosky, everything is nice and safe. But the moment you step into a more distant forest, or you wander in the cliffs around Rockwater Pond or the hills of Apollonia, things are very different. Even during the main storyline, all the nastiest events happen in the areas that have no direct line of sight to the castle. It speaks volume to Warhorse's attention to detail, because of course you can't really pull off banditry in plain sight. What are you talking about? So not only you've got a map that's got cool landmarks, but it's also drawn out in a way that makes sense in the context of the world it's set in. I know it's an overdone cliche at this point, but it really enhances the immersion when things like this click into place. Speaking of clicking, you can also do so on my Patreon page, where you can support my channel to your heart's content. You thought I was gonna forget about this? And since you're at it, leave some of your thoughts below. What did you like most about Trosky? Now comes the ambitious part of this video, where I go out of my way and show how great the quest design is for the player's exploration process. So what I'm gonna do is to cover the first few quests you encounter right as you start in Troskovitz. If these take you into a new place, I'll also mention side quests that are immediately accessible to further illustrate how much of Trosky you get to discover right as you start the game. I know it would be very easy for me to just zoom in on the map while I talk about each step, but I think I have to do a little bit better than that, ain't I? So how about marking things like this? That's nice, at least I fucking hope so when I wrote this part, so don't call past me a liar, okay? I'm just learning how to use After Effects. Just have mercy, okay? Please. The introductory segment lets you loose in Troskovitz village, which is the biggest settlement of the region outside of the often mentioned castle. You're going to have to ignore your geometric perception when I say this, but this is more or less the center of the map in more ways than one. It's the place with the most traders available, including the only tailor and scribe that you can find in Trosky, the former being a key piece of the main quest when you need to prepare to attend the wedding, by the way. More relevant to the point I'm trying to make, all your travels will have you pass through here in particular, as it acts as a central node for all the roads in Trosky. I mean, sure, you can just plow your horse through the thick forests and hope to avoid all the steep cliffs on the way, but you'll get very familiar with this village in no time. It's not like you have much of a choice in this matter, because it's the starting point of a whole bundle of quests that are brilliantly tailored by Warhorse. Not in a story sense necessarily, these play out only as a way to get you started and nothing more. But what drew my attention, and is the reason I'm making this video to begin with, is how they force you to explore different key areas of the map. So when you're finally handed the reins, you get access to 2 quests right away. The main one, Wedding Crashers, is focused on getting to the wedding between the Lord of Semin's son and the daughter of Troskovitz's bailiff, and the secondary quest is Mutt, in which Henry is looking for his loyal companion. Before you can even start jumping through menus, journals and map, you're enthusiastically called by an NPC that will quickly hand you another quest called Combat Training. Just mentioning it because it's, impossible to not notice. Last but not least, Invaders is another side quest you get access in the village as you explore a bit of it. Let's see where each takes us in reverse order, because I'm a fun guy like that. Combat Training is the simplest one to describe, as it takes you straight to the Nomad camp, at least on the first glance. I say this because the moment you arrive at the Nomad camp, you're told to talk to the Voivod, who hands you the Milifaita secondary quest that's really determined to take you all over the map to find his daughter. First, it takes you to the opposite side of the map, all the way in Apollonia, where she and her lover are hidden. After doing a bit of back and forth, you're tasked with rescuing the Voivod's son from his captivity in Semin, which is another very important location on this map, but you won't get to hang around much during this mission. In the search for Mutt, we witness a neat trick from Warhorse. Returning around the Rockwater Pond where the introduction chapter took place, we are given several leads. One chain of trips involves you going to the herb woman that saved your life, then to the fisherman who then directs you to a shepherd, and finally to the gamekeeper Vostatek before finding Mutt. This series of trips isn't spectacular on its own because they mostly revolve around the northwest corner of the map that you won't visit very often otherwise. But if you help the gamekeeper, you gain access not only to several decent skill trainers, but also to the Bird of Prey questline, in which you're tasked with hunting poachers throughout the entire map. First around the lakes area, but afterwards around the entirety of the map. Black Slatego, Lor Semin, and the north of Trosky Castle. But the great trick Warhorse pulled is the false lead given by the herb woman all the way back to the start of this search, when she tells you to ask the innkeeper from Zheleov's Wagoner's Inn if he knows anything about Mutt. The map design basically begs you to go there, since it's a couple of minutes away from where you start, and even if the man can't provide you with anything, the location itself is a small nexus. Not only it's the location of multiple traders and skill teachers, but it's also the starting spot of the Troubadour's quest, which provides another way to meet the gamekeeper Vostatek, plus the start of the fistfighting tournament that also takes you all over the map. Invaders starts as the Troskovitz innkeeper asks you to serve a group of humans as she is too uncomfortable to do it herself. This develops into one of the funniest quests of the game, but relevant to the topic at hand, because I'm not gonna go into parentheses again. It takes you into similar locations as the other ones. You have to find the Cuman's camp by asking around at Semin, Bozhena the herb woman, and a shepherd next to Zheleov, and you end up arriving right next to the nomad's camp where the fun stuff takes place. I'm tempted to say that it's not a coincidence that it takes you into almost the same places as Mutt. It's as if Warhorse really wanted to be damn sure you'll visit these specific landmarks. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. If you thought these were nice and dandy, then wait and see what the main quest is doing. That's because it provides 2 separate paths that are not only rewarding in multiple ways, but are actually set up organically. Specifically, late in the introduction, when you arrive at Troskovitz's tavern, you're being told about the big wedding, which might be the ticket to meeting Lord von Bergov. But while mingling there, you also get to meet 2 important guests, Radovan the blacksmith from Tachov, or Kretzel the miller from Lower Semin, who let you know that you can pay them a visit if you're looking for work. It's a really great way to present these 2 options organically as part of your exploits, instead of presented in an exposition dump by a lecturing NPC. If you choose to work with Radovan, you get to visit Tachov, that's the northernmost village on the map. Even if it's on the smaller side, it's actually one of the most important locations on the map in this early stage, as it's the only smithy available to you. To the shock of nobody, going this path also provides the game's introduction to the whole mechanic of weapon crafting, but the other two tasks given by him are also pretty consistent. The first, called The Jaunt, tasks you with going to Semin in search of a lost cart with equipment ordered by the Lord. Here we get to meet with Sir Yan of Semin, who's an important character in the main story, but also the place where you can find your horse Pebbles and completely disregard the horse economy. Not forgiving you for that one, by the way. The quest that brought you here ends up taking you to Apollonia, as Lord Semin and his captain take you on a trip to find the missing cart. Working for Krazel, on the other hand, takes you to the southernest point of interest in Lower Semin, but it doesn't introduce much beyond that. Aside from the fact that it presents the stealth and stealing mechanics, I'm only mentioning this because it would have sounded really awkward to mention him and then ignore him completely. And there you have it. Let's put all of this together and doesn't look too bad, doesn't it? We're just a few hours into Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and yet we set foot in every important place of Trosky. You can get tangled into many other side quests and activities alongside your natural inclinations to enjoy the scenery, but the crux of the matter is that Warhorse made it so that you don't have to go out of your way to access them, which is great to have in a game that gives its players complete freedom, as it reduces the risk of them getting lost into the myriad of things you can do. Another feather in the state-of-the-art cap for Kingdom Come 2, I'd say. Thanks to everyone for watching. Click the buttons and share this with your like-minded fellows. And until next time, cheers!